a small city in the Midwestern hub of the Rust Belt. Homemaker Diane Spice lives 5 miles north in the sleepy suburb of Blackman Township.
It was a normal, regular day, and the phone rang at early. It was like 10 minutes to 8.
The call is about Diane's niece, Amber.
It was Amber's boss telling me that she had not been to work for 2 days.
32-year-old Amber Gerwick works as an administrative assistant at a local consulting firm.
Amber worked for a company that contracted with Homeland Security. She enjoyed her job. She had just gotten a promotion, was really happy about that.
She was really excited. She was going from working in a cubicle to having an office of her own.
But it isn't just work that keeps Amber busy.
She was taking a medical administration course part-time at school, working full-time.
She was maintaining a 4.0 average while taking care of a family.
Amber has 4 children. She and her ex-husband share custody. Amber was at a good place in her life.
To Diane, her niece's sudden absence from work seems out of character.
For her not to show up for 2 days without calling in was very unusual. So I thought, well, maybe she's sick.
Amber has recently moved to a 1-bedroom apartment a few minutes from her Aunt Diane's home. Diane decides to check in on her. But she's greeted by nothing but a cold silence.
I knocked on the door pretty loudly, as loud as I could. I pounded on it for a few minutes, and I listened in to see if I could hear any sounds, but there was nothing.
Minutes later, Diane breaks the troubling news to Amber's mother, Jackie Seeger.
She asked if we had heard anything from Amber recently, and I said, well, we talked to her Saturday.
Jackie and her husband Dale speak with their daughter regularly.
Amber lives in Michigan, and I live in Georgia, and that's a long ways away. So in order to stay in touch, Amber and I talked to one another on the phone.
On April 9th, 2 days earlier, Amber was her usual talkative self.
She said that the kids were with their father that weekend, and that she was going to study for the day.
But Amber never mentioned plans to miss work. Immediately concerned, Jackie tries her daughter's cell phone.
There was no answer whatsoever, just would go to her voicemail.
We decided at that point there needed to be a missing persons report filed.
Diane files a report with the Blackman Township Department of Public Safety.
Well, the next step was, of course, going to her apartment and searching.
We felt it was important to check and make sure that she wasn't physically injured and laying in the apartment or worse.
Within the hour, patrol officers arrive at Amber's apartment. But Amber is nowhere to be found.
The police had crime scene investigative people there searching the apartment. They had called the detectives at that point.
Leading the investigation is veteran detective Robert Schrock.
As we entered, we made contact with the patrol officers that were on scene.
At first glance, nothing appears out of the ordinary.
There was no sign of like a struggle or altercation. The apartment wasn't in any type of disarray. There was food in the fridge. She also didn't appear to have packed any clothes. All indicators that she probably wasn't going somewhere for long.
But then, one item suddenly catches his attention.
Amber's purse was sitting by the door. Missing from the purse was her wallet, keys to the vehicle, and the vehicle was not at the apartment.
The evidence found in the apartment leads police to believe that Amber had left willingly. Until Detective Schrock reaches the bedroom at the end of the hall.
As I walked into the bedroom, I located a cell phone sitting on the bed. And the cell phone was still on.
A laptop and various school books are also strewn across the bed.
So it looked like she just got up and took off.
The objects left behind in the bedroom raise a new level of concern.
It made it more suspicious because most people won't leave their cell phone.
We were completely mystified. We did not know what could have caused her to leave the apartment without her cell phone, because it was attached to her like, it was part of her skin.
Detective Schrock begins to piece together possible scenarios.
It's one of two things. It's either Amber didn't want to be contacted, or somebody got a hold of her.
Did somebody break in? Did somebody get into the apartment? And did somebody take her forcefully?
But who would want to harm Amber Gerwick? Police speak with a number of friends and acquaintances, including Amber's ex-husband, but no one stands out as a suspect. However, down in Georgia, the Seegers are convinced their daughter would never disappear under normal circumstances.
When she walked out of that apartment, we're thinking there's something wrong.
Amber never would have left her children, just up and left her children.
Amber's career in security contracting gives her access to an inventory of sensitive government information. Her family wonders if Amber's disappearance is somehow connected to her job.
She probably would have known a number of things that could have been important to somebody that was maybe a terrorist or something.
Imagination goes wild. You can think of so many different things that could be going on, so many whys and so many what ifs.
The clues found in Amber's apartment in Michigan leave the family with a host of agonizing questions. But none points police towards an answer.
It was important to get going on this because the last time anyone had spoke to her was on the 9th. A couple days had already gone by, so we were already behind on trying to figure out what had happened.
When Detective Schrock returns to the station, he enters Amber into the National Crime Information Center, or NCIC. The system will raise a red flag if Amber or her vehicle appear on police radar for any reason.
At that point, we were kind of in this limbo. Like, what do we do?
We are sitting here in Georgia. She's missing in Michigan. Who do we contact? Who do we talk to? Where do we turn for help?
Then, only 3 hours later, the case takes a startling turn.
Then suddenly we get this call that the car turned up in Georgia as an abandoned car in Tunnel Hill.
I remember having to have that repeated to me because I must have heard it wrong. Her car couldn't have been in Tunnel Hill, Georgia.
And here's her car, 600 miles away from Jackson, where she lives. And we're like, now what?
Coming up, police uncover a puzzling new clue.
I saw the video and I just literally could not breathe.
Missing from her home in Jackson, Michigan. But just 3 hours after her family filed a missing persons report, Amber's car turned up in the parking lot of a Dollar General store in Georgia, over 600 miles from Jackson.
And everything changed. The search had suddenly moved from Michigan to Georgia.
What's most perplexing is not the SUV's distance from Amber's home in Jackson, but rather its proximity to her parents' home in Calhoun.
That's about 35 miles north of us. It's way off the highway. It's just kind of an out-of-the-way place.
According to Tunnel Hill Police, the SUV was abandoned in the parking lot at least 2 days earlier.
Did she drive the car down here? Did someone force her to drive the car down? Did someone do something to her and then take her car?
One day after Amber is reported missing, the case is turned over to Detective Eric Burnett of the Whitfield County Sheriff's Department in Georgia. Detective Burnett invites the Seegers down to the station to discuss some new developments in the case.
I met with Miss Gerwick's parents the first time at my office, the sheriff's office. Asked them about their daughter, what kind of a person she was, what kind of friends she has. I told them what we'd found in the car.
He said initially there appeared to be no signs of a struggle inside of the vehicle. There was no signs of violence. There was no blood evidence.
However, what police did find in the front seat of Amber's car raises a slew of new questions.
The skirt wallet was located in the car. There was no money there. It was just a debit card and her driver's license.
Police also found Amber's keys locked inside the SUV.
That was very strange to me.
If Amber drove the car, why would she leave her most important possessions behind? But then, if Amber were abducted, why would the kidnapper leave her possessions out in the open?
We ran all kind of scenarios of what might have happened to her. But the more we did that, the more confused we got. Is she running from anybody? Has someone done something to her? Those are questions that we needed to have answers for pretty quick.
There had to be something wrong for her to lock her billfold and her keys in. And the only thought that goes through my mind was she did that deliberately so somebody would know that she had been there, like leaving the breadcrumb trail.
Then, Detective Burnett reveals the most valuable piece of evidence found in the SUV, a small paper receipt. The receipt lists a number of purchases made at the Dollar General store. But since the receipt was locked inside Amber's SUV, whoever was driving the car must have been a customer at the store. And chances are, this person was caught on one of the Dollar General's many surveillance cameras.
Based on the receipt, we knew the time and the date of where to look. We wanted to see exactly who was in that store. We went to the Dollar General store and met with the manager at the store to watch the video.
Detective Burnett cues the footage up to Sunday, April 10th at 8:04 a.m., the time stamped on the receipt. What it reveals will turn the investigation on its head.
This is a surveillance video. It showed a female in there buying several items and leaving the store. She was a white female. She had a University of Kentucky blue sweatshirt on, blue jeans and tennis shoes.
I saw the video and I just literally could not breathe. Looked at the monitor and there's my daughter.
It was her. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind it was her, and it stopped me dead in my tracks.
You see her come in. She walks around. She picks up her items. She stops at the checkout. Guy comes to check her out. She kind of says hello to him. She picks up a chapstick or something right there by the cash register, pays for her stuff.
And she turned to the left and she just disappeared.
Amber's appearance on video ends here. There are no surveillance cameras in the Dollar General parking lot.
That's it. That's all we have. We have no way to know what happened when she left the store.
We watched it over and over. I just wanted to reach out and touch her. I just wanted to say, where are you, Amber?
The footage leaves the Seegers with more questions than answers.
She hasn't contacted us. She hasn't attempted to contact us, and why not? Where is she?
Never did I feel that Amber had got to Georgia willfully. I don't know why, how, but I know it's not of her own accord.
She looked up at the camera. She looks right at the surveillance camera, and we're like, okay, were we supposed to notice that? Was she trying to tell us something?
All theories aside, the Seegers must accept a painful reality. Over 3 days have passed since Amber was last seen alive.
It's like the big abyss of the unknown right before you.
My baby girl has been there, and I feel stronger now than ever before that she's in harm's way. And I can't help her.
Coming up, as the search effort expands, police turn their attention to a murky swamp in Tunnel Hill.
Dad and I both felt that this was going to end badly.
Amber Gerwig has not been heard from for 4 days. Georgia police spotted her on surveillance footage from a convenience store in the small town of Tunnel Hill, Georgia, over 600 miles from her home in Michigan. Oddly, it's just under 30 miles from her parents' house. But Amber has not been seen since, and her parents are beginning to fear the worst.
The problem is that, yeah, you saw her alive there, but you don't know what's happened in the meantime. Okay, she made it to Georgia, but she only made it as far as Tunnel Hill. How come she's not here?
No new leads have surfaced in the last 24 hours, and Amber's father, Dale, is growing restless.
Very much a helpless feeling. I don't know what to do. I haven't slept 2 nights before. Emotionally, I'm just torn up.
Dale decides to play a more active role in the investigation.
I finally had enough. I had to go looking for Amber.
He drives to the site of Amber's last known whereabouts, the Dollar General store.
I had to walk up and down the aisles. I know that I'm not going to find her there, but I know that that's where she was. And I walked up and down these same aisles. I'm in the aisle where they have the lotions and the shampoos and the stuff, and I walk up and down that. And while I'm walking, I'm thinking, Amber, what's happened to you?
There are no new clues to be found inside. But outside, the store's property borders an expanse of densely wooded swampland.
So I walked out and back, and I walked a grid pattern by myself, looking for my daughter in the tall grass. I'm not going to deviate from a straight line for nothing. So I'm walking through the brambles, I'm walking through the berry bushes, I'm walking through everything.
Dale is driven by instinct, but terrified of what he might find.
I climbed down in the drainage culvert, walked that from one end to the other, and walked out there through the mud as much as I could to find her.
After trudging through acres of jagged bramble and putrid swamp, Dale can go no further.
I just sat there and looked down. I was all scratched up, my legs were all muddy and everything. I remember buying some bottled water and washing my legs and stuff off. And I remember the dread of going home because I had not been successful.
The Sheriff's Department enlists the help of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, a state-run criminal justice organization.
Well, the GBI, they have more resources than we do. They bring us more manpower for searches.
Heading up the case is Special Agent Daniel Sims.
Time is of a critical element. The first couple of days is very important in the collection of facts and evidence, mainly because those things are perishable. They can go away. As far as investigative work, Amber was at the top of the list.
The first official step for the Bureau is to mount an extensive search throughout Tunnel Hill.
We organized a search with about 30 emergency personnel. The area around the Dollar General store is extremely rural. And it's hilly, if not mountainous. We wanted to make sure that she wasn't in the woods. Other officers searched the railroad tracks that transversed that strip mall that the Dollar General is part of. And we also had some individuals search the swampy area behind the Dollar General itself. And we did neighborhood canvas searches, went door to door.
This may be an awful thing to admit, but when they said that they were going to go back up there and search, I actually prayed that they wouldn't find Amber, because that would mean a body, not my daughter.
You go into it with the hopes and aspirations that you'll find her alive. But at the same time, having traveled down these investigative roads before, you keep your eyes open for anything that's on the ground or motionless, or, of course, the discovery of the human body.
But after an exhaustive search, the team comes up empty. Though Agent Sims is undeterred, the failure to uncover new evidence is a blow to morale.
The longer that anyone is missing, the chances of finding them lessens.
Dad and I both expressed that we felt that this was going to end badly, that there really wasn't a lot of hope. It was very hard to be hopeful because of the history as a family.
Although it's hard to fathom, Amber's disappearance is actually a familiar trauma for the Seeger family.
I had been through this once before when my brother disappeared.
It was winter, it was in January, and he tried to go to this party and he got lost and got stuck in the snow. We didn't know where he was for 2 years. He died of hypothermia. It was horrible for our family.
How could we as a family endure a long-term disappearance again? Would we be able to get through something like that?
Coming up, Amber's father suddenly finds himself at the center of the investigation.
And I remember breaking down. I found it unconscionable, but somebody could make that accusation against me.
Missing Michigan resident Amber Gerwick was last seen alive on April 10th, 2011, in a small-town Georgia convenience store. But in the days and weeks following, in spite of a concentrated search effort led by state and local police, no new leads have materialized.
When you know that you have a missing person and their family's grieving, it's hard not to think about that even when you're off duty. And I found myself thinking a lot about Amber and where she might be.
Distraught by the lack of answers, Amber's parents devote every spare moment to searching for their daughter.
Obviously, the detectives and the police and sheriffs and Agent Sims were all doing their part, but we needed to be doing something as well.
Amber's brother, Sean, designs a missing persons poster for his parents to distribute around town.
It had 3 pictures of Amber on it. Probably the most important picture, believe it or not, was a large angel tattoo on her shoulder. I was never happy that Amber got tattooed until we had this huge angel that we could put out there and say, here's an identifying mark that you can use to find her.
When she was younger, she was enamored with angels, and we're talking from an early age. We're talking 3 years old.
I had an angel pin, and when I saw the pin, I'd forgotten I had it. I pulled it out and I put it on. It served to help me. You know, I wore it every single day.
The Seegers launch a broad campaign to get the word out.
That poster was distributed, and literally thousands of those things were all over the southeast United States.
We had put her listing on Facebook. We would post it and we would ask our friends to repost it, and Amber's friends were posting it and reposting it.
Dale and Jackie are desperate for their efforts to yield some new leads.
That was my full-time job, was finding Amber.
Meanwhile, Agent Sims is working every angle, including some of the darkest places on the criminal landscape.
There is a certain segment of our society that are predators, and they do target people. We did focus on local sex offender databases, and we actually interviewed some people that were on that list.
Then, on April 27th, disaster strikes the South.
Northeast Alabama and northwest Georgia and southeastern Tennessee got hammered with a series of F4 tornadoes. We had to divert ourselves from the investigation to focus on rescue efforts. It was a pretty trying time for everybody in the Northwest Georgia region.
Suddenly, at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Amber's case is no longer priority number one.
We knew that he literally did not have time. That was rather devastating for us.
There might be, 2 or 3 hours a day that I could focus on Amber's investigation, and then it was right back to our efforts in helping the communities that were afflicted by the tornadoes.
But despite Agent Sims' vigilance, weeks go by with no new answers. For the Seegers, each passing day erodes their hopes of finding their daughter.
Amber had been missing for 3.5 weeks. We cried, we prayed, we didn't sleep. It was a real tough time. We were running out of ideas.
On May 4th at 1:30 p.m., Special Agent Sims calls the Seegers down to the station. He says he has an important matter to discuss with them.
He met us at the Sheriff's Department here in Gordon County, and he said that he needed to question us separately.
I told her that we had investigated the case thoroughly, that we had absolutely no evidence to suggest that her daughter had become the victim of foul play. We had no evidence that she was alive.
He said, we have no more leads. We don't know where to look anymore.
It wasn't that we were stopping the investigation. It was just at the stage where we knew that it would be easy to perceive that the investigation was grinding to a halt.
That was extremely upsetting.
For Jackie, what Agent Sims told her is almost impossible to accept. But when Agent Sims sits down with Dale, the news only gets worse.
During that meeting with him, he said something to me. Somebody had made the accusation that I knew where Amber was, and I was helping her to stay hidden.
Information had come our way that Dale would do this, and it was a bridge that I felt like I had to cross with him.
Dale feels blindsided by the accusation.
I remember breaking down. I found it unconscionable, but somebody could make that accusation against me.
One of the most unpleasant parts of my job is when I've got to sit down with somebody who is truly grieving and then challenge them as to whether they have committed a crime. I didn't feel like that the Seegers had engaged in this type of activity, but I just had to cross that bridge.
Agent Sims is convinced of Dale's innocence, but it comes as little relief.
After we got done with that discussion, he told me there was just nothing more they could do. I remember walking out of that interview room and feeling like I was carrying a 10-ton weight.
The Seegers' lives have taken on a hollow sadness they are convinced they will have to live with forever. But they soon would be proven dead wrong. Later that day, Agent Sims gets an unexpected call.
A few hours after I had this meeting with the Seegers, I received a call from the Whitfield County Sheriff's Office. One of the secretaries in the investigative division said, "You need to contact the Joliet, Illinois Police Department. There's a detective there that wants to speak to you." No matter how many cases you've done, no matter how many investigations that you have undertaken, every now and then somebody will throw a curveball at you from left field.
Only 2 hours after returning home, the Seegers' phone rings.
It was Special Agent Sims. I recognized the phone number and I said, "Yes, Special Agent." He says they've located a woman in Joliet, Illinois, who matches Amber's description, that has amnesia.
Their department had found a young female wandering in a city park and had flagged down the police. She was suffering from memory loss, did not know who she was, and that they had been dealing with a Jane Doe.
Then he says something Amber's father will never forget.
This woman had a tattoo of an angel on her back.
Coming up, a dramatic break in the case is not exactly what it seems.
I'm looking into a face that isn't right. I don't know how to explain it. She just didn't look right.
It's been 3.5 weeks since missing mother Amber Gerwick was last seen in Tunnel Hill, Georgia. Her family had all but given up hope of finding her when they received some astonishing news. An unidentified woman suffering from memory loss was found in Joliet, Illinois, nearly 600 miles north of Tunnel Hill. Joliet police think it's Amber.
They've located a woman that matched her description identically, that had an angel tattoo on her right shoulder.
In Joliet, the story of the woman who lost her memory had caught the attention of the local media, who broadcast a photo of the mysterious woman. The photo was seen by someone familiar with the missing person flyer posted on Facebook.
The Facebook communication was that this is the person you're looking for. She's Amber Gerwick.
Sims sends the Seegers a photo of the woman taken at Silver Cross Hospital in Joliet.
And there was Amber in a hospital bed, staring at us. I just said, it's her. It's her. And Dale's like, it's her. She's there. She's alive. We were jumping. We were screaming. We were crying.
My happiness wasn't even close to their happiness. Over the phone, you could hear that weight being lifted, and all of a sudden this flood of hope coming into their heart that, their daughter's alive.
But Dale notices something strange in the photograph.
I'm looking at Amber's picture, and I know it's Amber, but I'm looking into a face that isn't right. She just didn't look right.
Her eyes were empty, and I didn't see Amber's personality shining back at me.
Despite their misgivings about the photo, the Seegers are eager to get to Joliet. They pack their bags and begin the 600-mile drive that night. The next morning, Dale and Jackie head straight to the hospital.
The nurses gave us an update on Amber's condition and what was going on. She was unharmed. She was fine. The only thing that was wrong was her memory.
Amber is suffering from one of the most complex and puzzling conditions in medicine: transient global amnesia.
She didn't remember being married. She didn't remember having children. She just forgotten her life.
Dr. Lucy at Silver Cross put it this way: 99.99% of the doctors in this country will go through their entire career practicing medicine and will never see this type of amnesia, ever.
That afternoon, the Seegers finally get the chance to see their daughter face to face.
We saw Amber, and she was holding a little stuffed dog they had given her in the ER. And what I remember is my daughter taking one look at us, and she grabbed that doll and she hung it real close, and she started crying and said, "I don't know you. I don't remember you." And she just cried. I mean, she was just sobbing. And Jackie and I reassured her that was fine, that was no problem.
We had talked in the car and prepared ourselves for the possibility that she might not know us.
But for Amber, the reunion is a frightening realization of just how much she had lost.
They terrified me because I didn't know them. It was devastating not knowing who your parents are. Worse than not knowing who you are. These are the people who raised me. I remembered them the way they were when I was little, but I didn't know who they were at that moment.
Amber can only remember her life up to age 12. Almost all memories from her adult life have vanished.
I'd look in the mirror and the face that was looking back at me was not the face that I would expect. You know, I'd expect to look in the mirror and see that kid that I was, and it was an adult looking back at me.
The Seegers spend the next few days slowly walking Amber through the last 2 decades of her life.
They were explaining to me that I'd been missing and how long I'd been gone and how she had this angel pin. And I loved angels.
I gave her the pin and I told her, Amber, told her why I'd worn it every day. And now you need to find yourself. So this is your angel pin now to help you find yourself.
At the end of the week, Amber is reintroduced to her 4 children.
She met with each of them for a half an hour, one at a time. It was a difficult thing, but she enjoyed seeing her kids, and they were overjoyed.
Amber is released from the hospital and travels with her parents to Georgia to begin a long and strenuous recovery process. But many questions still remain, particularly what happened the night she disappeared. Fortunately, Amber can recall her last hours of lucidity.
I remember studying, sitting at my computer, trying to get schoolwork done.
In the early evening, Amber took a break from studying and headed to a nearby convenience store.
I remember going down to the car and getting there and realizing I'd left my phone upstairs. All I had grabbed was my keys and my wallet. I didn't see any reason to go back upstairs to grab my phone when I was only going to be gone for a few minutes. I went to the convenience store down the road. I picked up a couple of small things there, and then that's it. It just stops. It's like there's nothing else after that until I remember the hospital.
Doctors assume Amber spent the next 3.5 weeks in what is known as a dissociative fugue state.
Dr. Lucy told us that the person that is in the fugue state can still operate. They can take care of themselves. They just don't know what's going on. They don't remember it.
But no one knows what triggered the episode.
We know that a traumatic event can cause global amnesia. That's what we believe happened.
Amber numerous times has been very specific in a fear that a man walks up behind her, puts his left hand on her right shoulder and spins her around. This is something new.
I believe that somebody grabbed her from behind and either frightened her terribly or did something to her and she ran.
Amber is still haunted by the dark gaps in her memory. She still has no idea where she was, where she ate, or where she slept at night during her fugue state.
I refuse to think about what happened during those 3.5 weeks when I was missing. What caused me to walk away? What caused me to just disappear like that? What happened to me while I was gone? I could drive myself crazy thinking about those things. I've had to stop thinking about it and just accept that those 3.5 weeks are gone and that I'll never get them back, even if I get the rest of my life back.
Today, Amber is still working to recover the memories she lost, but she has a positive outlook towards the future.
There's so much she doesn't know, so much she doesn't remember, and she wants to know it all. She wants to learn it all.
She's remembering a little bit more each day.
The Amber that you see today is the Amber that she's always been. There's really no change in her personality. Her sense of humor is the same.
The best thing that has come out of having amnesia, I've had this opportunity to examine my life and the decisions that I made from an almost a third-person perspective. How many...
You're in the hot seat now for some real serious offences.
Not interested in it. You're being accused of an armed robbery.
When a criminal strikes...
Money now, don't put me till now.
Listen to me! Do anything I perceive to be a threat to life to be shot, do you understand?
Terrified victims deserve justice.
To have something like this held to your throat, absolutely petrifying.
It's innocent people going about their day-to-day lives. They didn't deserve this in the slightest.
First, detectives must identify a suspect.
This lad, and it's him.
Suspect's quite prolific. We really need to get this guy in custody.
Police! Drop to your knees! Do not move! Right, you're arrested.
Get him over if you ain't out, innit?
Next,
Police!
they must hunt for concrete evidence.
Ooh, it's like George in the jungle in there.
That's him, innit?
Ah, perfect.
Then question the suspect face to face.
This is your opportunity. If you're going to tell us something, you tell us it now.
Did you put the knife to his throat?
Absolutely not.
What are we doing? Phone out there. You come up. Get out of my way.
Will the evidence stand or fall?
That is that. That is that.
Will the suspect confess or deny everything? Will the police uncover the truth in time?
24 hours is a very limited period of time, so carry out a full investigation.
Because time is ticking and we've got 8 hours left.
The best way to safeguard the public is to have the suspect in custody and remand them to prison.
Boom! All the charges, yes!
This time,
We've watched a group get some weapons.
a mass brawl leaves a man fighting for his life.
He's got a hole in his head.
And a manhunt for the armed suspects.
Ooh, is that a crowbar? He needs to be the absolute priority.
Police officer retains it! And who's that makes up known?
The police officer emergency. Hiya. We're closing up, but we've got a really bad fire outside with customers. How many people are involved? Right, there's about 20 out here at the moment. We've watched a group get some weapons, and now they're heading towards the riverhead.
Police are receiving reports of a huge brawl rampaging through the streets.
The police officer emergency.
Hiya, we've just had 6 lads run round to the front of Fusion, Old Victoria Street, with weapons, crowbars, spades, all sorts. One of them hit this lad with a crowbar. We shut doors immediately. 5 others run up behind with weapons.
Did the person that was hit with the crowbar look like they need an ambulance?
One of them definitely did, yeah.
You head up, we've got 3 patrols en route at the moment.
With both callers reporting weapons being used, officers race to the town centre. They immediately pursue a group of 9 men, seen running away.
You're under arrest on suspicion of GBH, alright, you do not have to say anything, but may harm his friends if you do not mention when questioned, something which you later rely on court, because there's been an incident and you've been seen running as police have turned up.
3 suspects are caught and arrested.
We'll sit there. Got it.
Step in and Montreal, put in, take a seat just there for us, please. Thank you. I've got a potential scene on New Street. There's a pool of blood near the ambulance.
3 victims of the attack are being treated for their injuries.
What have you been hit with? He went through me with a crowbar, blocked it, took a big gash on the arm. He's got a hole in his head. Like a crowbar hole. Penetrating head injury. The other ones are stable, but they're all covered in claret. He's got an hole in his arm. We need to get to Paul Sharpish. Right. The hand injury is exactly the same shape as the head injury. Is it? Been hit with the same thing, crowbar, I said. Probably, yeah. All the way to the lamppost to the loose end. That's where the blood goes up to. Okay. It's one hell of an hit, that one. Yeah.
Police begin to question witnesses to try and piece together the circumstances of the attack.
So the guy in the red was stood here, talking to us, and they've come running round from here. Here's obviously, but there's millions of them, and I think it's spilled over here. Yeah. Okay.
You saw two running, and one in the black, all black, he got hit with the, I think it's a pipe. I saw a bit of curvage top. He was, the one near the lamppost was knocked out for a bit. Yeah. He wasn't moving. The one that was in front, he had the big gash. He had a massive gash. Yeah. Covered hands. Everything was just covered in stone blood. I've worked in nightclubs, I've seen blood. I've never seen anything like that. I'm just shaking.
Oh, bless you.
That's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
While the victims are rushed to hospital, with one in critical condition from a head wound, the 3 suspects are taken to Birchin Way police station.
Hello again, Serge. What's your name? Madelko. Hello.
The other 2 suspects are named Madeleine Illier and Marian Vasilake.
Right, so you have been arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm. Yeah, that will be investigated while you're in custody. Once your clothing has been seized, you will go to a holding cell. 60. That one.
Police now have 24 hours to prove that the 3 suspects were involved in the brawl. But where are the other 6 assailants? And who is the man with the crowbar? In Grimsby,
Lad with weapon. One of them hit this lad with a crowbar.
a mass brawl has left 3 injured victims, one in critical condition.
He's got a hole in his head.
So you're under arrest on suspicion of GBH, alright?
3 suspects have been arrested, but 6 are still at large.
He's in white top, he's got like dark bottoms.
White hoodie, dark bottoms?
Yeah.
Due to the severity of the attacks, the case has been passed to CID.
Okay, grab a chair.
Headed by Detective Superintendent Nicky Burnett.
Yeah, boss, we've got 3 males in custody. We've got a Mirel Korf, Marianne Vasilaki, and a Madeleine Illy.
I'm assuming, were they at the scene, located
Yes.
at the scene?
Yes.
Okay.
We've got a male who's in critical, life-threatening condition at HRI with a serious head injury. Appears to be struck with an implement, potentially with a crowbar.
Okay. So I've seen the injury photographs. It's really nasty, actually, isn't it?
I believe there's others that have been assaulted, but not to the same level.
So this is the actual assault?
Yeah.
Detective Superintendent Nicky Burnett and Detective Inspector Scott Miller review the CCTV footage of the incident.
And you can see male with, it's almost like a striking motion in the air there.
Oh my God.
And we'll see him hit
Oh my
him
goodness.
There. And he's now
Wow.
he's on the floor. He's not
That's
moving.
horrendous.
He's still hitting him.
Yeah. He was like hitting him with as much effort as he could there above his head.
Yeah, the movement you see in the CCTV is definitely that of somebody almost like chopping wood or something, isn't it?
There's obviously more suspects outstanding. We've got the 3 in custody then, so priorities today will be interview of those 3. And then the passive data, CCTV trawl. So we've got a group of people here who think nothing to go and arming themselves. Our main priority is to make sure that they are arrested. They're clearly dangerous individuals, and whilst they're out on the streets, then there's a chance they could do this again.
First, the team must try to get an understanding of the events leading up to the assault.
So he comes over there and what's said, he goes back.
They review footage of the original brawl.
So just watching the initial CCTV, we've got initially some form of physical altercation between two groups of males, which spills out into the street, maybe 15 to 20 individuals involved. And then we pick up one of the groups of males in further footage, and they're then seen to go to the rear of a white van, and then from that we've got individuals taking items from the back of the van and then making their way towards the person we know to be our intended victim.
You're doing comparison with the ones who got locked up.
Next, the team try to determine any role the three men in custody played in the attack. They compare clothing they were wearing when they were arrested to clothing seen in the CCTV footage.
Dark shoulder jacket is going to be Madeline Illy. So I've got him swinging a spade.
Okay, and we've got him in custody, yeah?
Yeah, in custody.
Okay.
Believe that this chap here is Marianne Vasilaki. That's him upon arrest.
Yeah.
You can see him in his light-coloured or grey-coloured hooded top.
Yeah.
So really content.
Yeah.
One and the same. He's been running towards our complainants and our victims and offering violence.
Do we see him with a weapon?
No, not that I can see.
Okay. So
Burgundy, that's burgundy jacket man, isn't he? Is that Muriel Korf in the picture?
Yes. Yes, with the moustache.
Yeah. And then we've also got Muriel Korf on this footage as well, who can be clearly seen to be throwing punches in the direction of people.
While the hunt for the other 6 suspects continues, police interview the 3 men in custody.
What we will be doing is testing their accounts. We'll be trying to tie them into a story and then challenge that story. So if they do tell us a lie in the interview, we can then present them with the evidence that shows that the account they've given us was a lie.
So we are now recording. We're at Birchingway Custody Suite in Grimsby. Can you give me your full name, please?
Ilie Madeleine Valentin.
Okay, so you've been arrested for an assault. Tell me what happened.
No comment.
Okay. What was your involvement in this incident?
No comment.
I'm going to show you some CCTV. Does that look familiar?
No comment.
Did you identify anyone in that CCTV?
No comment.
The person in the same clothing in the last CCTV was actually holding a shovel or a spade.
No comment.
I believe you're arrested not far from here in the same jacket as that.
No comment.
We're saying that to you.
No comment.
We're showing you what's happened last night. It shows you you're one of the aggressors going tooled up.
No comment.
Okay. We've got no more questions for you. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, that's recording.
Madeline Illier is not talking. Detectives now confront the next suspect, Marianne Vasilaki, with the CCTV.
We're going to show you this. I want you to watch it.
Eu m-am dus și eu acolo ușor, i-am dat show la unul, a fugit la roșu, brațul ăla care a zis. Era omul ăla care a fugit la, atunci omul ăla în roșu, care era îmbrăcat în roșu. A venit la colț acolo și a arătat un pumn acolo.
Ok.
După ce am mai stat, după ce s-a făcut acolo, a căzut doi jos acolo și erau doi jos. Când am venit eu cu So
the other ones used the metal bar.
And who are they? Do you know any of them?
Cunosc că am mai văzut nimeni fără, nu știu cum sunt, m-am putut de făcut.
Why have you then chased around and gone to punch the guy in the top, red top?
M-am dus ca să bat filmul, a zis că s-a bătut, când a zis că s-a bătut, că odată în el, știi?
Right, you can see what's going on, but that doesn't mean you punch someone. So I'm asking you, what the difference is there? Was it something that you planned once you got there?
Noi mergem de acolo. A fost prea red.
Just to clarify, you're with a group that you've met before, but you don't really know the names. Fight breaks out, you've thrown 2 punches at the guy in the red. You've not touched the other 2 victims, and you chase around because everyone else does.
Yes, I didn't touch the other 2.
Okay. I've got no more questions. Have you got anything else you want to add?
No.
No. Okay.
With one suspect admitting his involvement, detectives are hunting for the other 6 men still at large.
We've got one all in dark clothing.
D.I. Miller has received news from the hospital.
Have you got victim update?
Yeah. Update from hospital is no longer critical.
Thank goodness.
So he's going to be okay.
Okay, that's good news. The interviews?
Still ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're likely to get further lines of inquiry and fast-track actions from those interviews, which might lead us to further suspect identification.
Yeah.
It's now Mirel Korf's turn to be interviewed. Will he identify any of the other perpetrators of the assault?
In here. Okay, so we are now recording. You were arrested for an assault. Tell me about it.
Nu am nicio adresare, absolut nicio adresare nu am. Mi-am fost la bar, m-am luat și pe el, am început bătaie pe acolo. Așa am plecat de la barul ăla unde a fost incidentul cu bătăie pe acolo, am plecat la alt bar, adică am evitat cu el, nu știu de cum să fac altceva eu pe acolo și până să-mi iau femeilor.
Okay. So, you said where the incident happened. Do you know what incident we're talking about?
Conflict, nu știu, între ei ce au avut. Englezește, englezi s-au luat la conflict acolo afară și eu am ieșit și am plecat cu prietenul ăsta. Și mergeam pe trotuar și când am ajuns până în bar, m-am uitat, am văzut închis, am dat să mă întorc înapoi să plec acasă, m-am oprit.
When you're trying from leaving that first bar to being arrested, has he seen any other conflict?
Nu, absolut nu.
After denying he was involved, Mirel Korf is then challenged with the CCTV evidence.
Okay. I'm just going to show you a video. Okay. Now that's paused. You can see it a bit clearer. Can you see anyone in that CCTV footage that you identify?
That's you.
Okay. Which one's you?
Ăsta de aici. Da.
This one here. Okay.
Da, mă, n-ai de ce să mai mă feresc, recunosc totuși. Nu pot să mă ascund.
I can't find.
Pentru că aici sunt camere peste tot și nu pot face acolo nimic.
Okay. Tell me that.
Anterior, m-au primit telefon. Precum că au avut un conflict. Și au zis, îmbracă direct de cu Vasili, are probleme în centru. Și am crezut că ia bătaie. Așa, am ajuns în centru, eu nu am făcut găsit și cum și am intrat direct cu gura lucrurile.
As I got into the town and it seemed like I walked into the wolf's mouth.
Am ajuns acolo și nu am știut, adică pur și simplu sigur și nu mi-au explicat băieții din ce și cum. Când am ajuns, ei direct au început să dea cu pumnii, cu mâna.
Mirel Korf has admitted his involvement. But will he go further?
Name them. Okay, so this person.
Cine este?
Mihai. Dănuț. Ăsta aici.
You know his surname?
Nu știu.
Where he lives?
De la noi la un sfert de ore, care ca casa altă este lor.
Okay. And now you're telling the truth.
Îmi spui adevărul acum, da?
Da.
What's your address?
Adresa mea este aici unde stau eu, dar o am pe telefon și am greșit.
Okay. We don't have any more questions for you. Thank you very much for being honest with us.
Da.
De acolo.
Trebuia să recunosc din primul.
I should have said it from the beginning. Yes, you should.
Știam, era mai
You would have been better.
It's a huge breakthrough. Police now have the first names of the 6 outstanding suspects.
Mario, you don't have to get up. Just listen to what the officer has to say.
With the interviews and the strong CCTV, the Crown Prosecution Service agreed to charge all 3 with violent disorder.
Before we do, we need to first use or threatened unlawful violence when present together with others, being 3 or more persons in total.
I remanded him into custody to appear at Brunsey Magistrates Court in the morning.
The remaining attackers are still at large.
This is some of the closest footage I've seen, I think.
But detectives have uncovered new CCTV footage.
So I have them coming down this road shortly.
What street is this one?
Is it the library?
The library, yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, oh yeah, that's right. They're going down towards where Fusion is there, aren't they? Ooh.
Item in hand.
Is that a crowbar then? That you've
Looks
got
like crowbar, yes.
That could have caused that injury to his head, you know, with the bit that goes over at the top.
Police now have clear evidence that their suspect number 1 was wielding a crowbar.
So, White Gilet Man needs to be the absolute priority at the moment.
The race is on to track him down.
Just had blood with weapons. One of them hit this lad with a crowbar.
Police are hunting a group of 9 men responsible for several vicious assaults.
I remanded him into custody to appear at Brunsey Magistrates Court in the morning.
They've already charged 3 suspects with violent disorder.
This person.
One of them has given the police names. And now they need to locate the remaining 6 suspects. At the scene of the incident, forensics officers are gathering evidence that might help provide full identities.
We don't know if any of the people that have assaulted our injured people have been injured as well. So to get somebody's blood who is a suspect at the scene will be quite interesting.
They've also seized the suspect's white van.
OK, so we've imaged the vehicle in situ and the surrounding streets and taken it really into context of the pedestrian precinct looking down at the Fusion. So we've got it sort of located.
That looks like absolute chaos in the back of there.
Crime scene investigators Kirsty Richmond and Alicia Whiteley are examining the vehicle.
Literally just work stuff. Yeah. This vehicle was one that the males were seen getting weapons in and out of. I mean, there's a couple of saws that are in easy access, but they're in a box quite happily sat there. It's a bit of a letdown in the rear with not being anything obvious that the officers were after.
Next, they search for fingerprints and DNA evidence.
The officers have asked us to have a look at it, see if we can find anything to try and identify the people that have been inside the vehicle. So we can get, you know, if there's cigarettes, if there's drinks bottles, people leave vapes, you know, mobile phones even, all sorts of things can be left that we can then get some DNA or fingerprints from. some definitely on the outside. There's some big ones there. So we've got about 20 exhibits in total. We've got a few fingerprints, lots of other bits of DNA. So that will go off to the lab.
While the forensic samples are sent for analysis, back at Birchin Way, the team have made a breakthrough.
Detectives have been working to try and establish who that van belongs to. It looks that the registered keeper is actually a Mihai Vasilaki. Looking at the CCTV of the incident and cross-referencing and comparing that against social media images of Mihail Vasilaki. And we can see him with three of the person on the CCTV at this time, actually approaching and taking items from the rear of the van that belongs to him, and then they all walk towards the where our intended victim of the incident is. So Mihai Vasilaki is a suspect.
Police arrest him at the address the vehicle is registered to. Mihail Vasilaki is brought into custody.
The allegation is that he has been identified through police inquiries as being one of a number of males who have assaulted other males using weapons which has caused injuries consistent with being grievous bodily harm.
Detectives interview him to see if he will give an account of his role in the assault.
So you were arrested for an assault in the early hours of yesterday morning in Grimsby Town Centre. Tell me your knowledge of that incident. Nothing. When was the last time you was in Grimsby Town Centre?
Not much.
When you go out to Grimsby, into the town centre, how would you usually get there?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay. And whose car is that?
Mine.
Okay. And what type of car is it? Can you describe it to me?
Van.
Okay. And what colour is this van? Between 1 o'clock in the morning to around about 4 o'clock in the morning yesterday, which was the 1st of April, were you out in your van?
No.
Was anyone else in your... Were you driving out in your van between those hours?
No.
So I'm just going to show you some CCTV. So this shows a white van. Do you recognise that van?
No.
Okay. Do you recognise the two people now that are going towards the van?
No.
Or the third person that's just come up?
No.
Was that you?
No.
So as you can see from that, 3 people have run off with items from that van. Have you supplied these people with these weapons?
No.
Were you involved in this at all?
No.
Did you know anything about this at all?
No.
Is there anything else now in this interview which is your chance to tell us what's going on? What you want to tell us?
No.
Okay. The time is 19:30. Yeah, all right, yeah, that's a new call.
Mihail Vasilaki is giving no clues to the whereabouts of the 5 suspects, including the man in the white gilet, who has been named as Adi. But investigations into addresses associated to the men in custody have given detectives a new lead.
So we strongly suspect now that a large proportion of our suspects reside at the same property. We also know that post the initial assault with fists outside the public house, we know a phone call was made by Mirel Korf to an associate at that property. So we're carrying out further arrest attempts at that location.
Police officer, stay there! Stay where you are! Stay there! Stay there! Right, it's where we take under arrest on suspicion of violent disorder. All right? Stand up, stand up! Stay where you are! Downstairs, see him now. Downstairs, downstairs. It's too secure. Police officer, retain his head! And inside, make yourself known!
Inside the property, police find two men
He's already locked up.
who were both arrested and brought back to Birchin Way police station.
What's your name, please?
Vasile, Corp.
What's your name?
Mihalache Dumitru Danut.
All details.
Mihalika Danut and Vasile Korf are the next suspects to be brought into custody. Will they admit to their involvement in the attacks?
Could you please state your full name?
Corp. Vasile.
He was arrested on suspicion of GBH and also on suspicion of violent disorder. Can you tell me in as much detail as possible your involvement in these allegations? Have you assaulted anyone?
No comment.
Did you use a weapon to hurt anybody?
No comment.
Did you see anybody hit anyone with a weapon?
No comment.
Vasile Korf is refusing to give an account. Will Mihalaka Danut provide any more information?
We are in interview room 4 at Grimsby Birchin Way. You're suspected of being involved in these offences and you're arrested on suspicion of grievous body harm.
Da, este adevărat.
Yes, it's true.
Eu nu am agresat pe absolut nimeni, doar am alergat după acea persoană. Victima a fost agresată de către un amic Adeline.
Adeline's hit somebody with a weapon?
Da.
Yes.
She'll watch a bit of CCTV. So...
Eu fiind aici.
Yeah,
I'm here,
plugged
in the back.
So, he's assaulted one. You were watching.
Zădul pe Adeline, lovindu-l pe cel de albastru. Și lovindu-l Adeline cu ranga.
And again, Adeline hit him with the metal ball.
Adeline.
Danut has given the full first name of the man with the crowbar, Adeline.
You don't know his surname?
Numele complet nu.
No.
Dar această poză puteți o dați la aeroport că pleacă în seara asta.
But you should send the picture to the airport because he booked a flight to leave tonight.
Oh. Right.
It's a bombshell for the detectives. Their main suspect is about to flee the country.
How do you know that?
Am vrut să fac și eu același lucru, dar am decis că e mai bine să rămân și l-am întrebat cât a dat pe biletul de avion.
Do you know when he's leaving? Where from?
Pleacă de la adresa lui Mihai, de unde este mașina.
He leaves...
Duba. Dar adresa nu...
From Mihai's address.
Unde ajunge, habar nu.
Can you tell you what town?
She says la Jordan?
Nu.
No. That says că e seara asta.
Da.
But he's told me that it's for tonight.
Spre România, da.
To Romania, yes. Anything you wish to add?
No.
The time report tomorrow, which is 48 hours, I'm bringing this into a college. Școala pe care această lună este 14.
One of our suspects has informed us that the male with the white gilet, he has actually purchased a ticket to go back to Romania. This obviously gives us some urgency now. we need to get this individual before he jumps on a plane. So the clock's ticking now, it really is. If he were to leave the country, it would be very difficult, you know, to locate him and bring him back again to face justice.
Danut has told police he is likely to be at the home of the owner of the white van, Mihail Vasilake.
Elusa, make yourself known!
Officers enter the property.
Clear. Clear.
But it's empty. Are they too late? Has he fled the UK? Police are still hunting for 3 outstanding suspects responsible for vicious and violent attacks, including the man who inflicted the serious injuries with a crowbar.
Dar această poză puteți o dați la aeroport că pleacă în seara asta.
You should send the picture to the airport because he booked a flight to leave tonight.
They have raided his address after a tip-off that he is about to flee the country,
There's no vehicles on the front.
but have so far been unable to track him down. With time running out, detectives at Birchin Way Police Station urgently investigate any other addresses he may be linked to.
Can I just take your name, please? Can you spell that for me?
Here's some pictures here of the clothing that was worn.
Officers at the property search for any clothing he was wearing on the night.
What weapons were outstanding? I think it was just a crowbar.
Crowbar?
I've seen one.
What shoe descriptions did we have? One of them was like cream.
To come down here, one for an arrest attempt for the outstanding suspects, but also to see if any items related to the offence were found, what we believe to be the clothing that the suspect was wearing, whilst he was believed to be involved in the assault which took place yesterday night.
Back at Birchin Way Police Station, there's been a major development.
Is it Adeline? Adeline. Have you ever been arrested before?
After new intelligence identified the address of an associate, plainclothes officers have arrested their main suspect.
I'm authorising your detention here at Birchin Way Police Station to obtain evidence by way of questioning. So what that means is you need to be interviewed in relation to that allegation to see whether you know anything about that incident. Okay. So that's why I'm going to hold you here and then we'll get you interviewed.
He's taken for interview. But what will he say about the assault?
Okay, we are now recording.
Can
you give me your full name?
My name is Vasilake.
Thank you. Okay. So, you've been arrested for an assault that happened yesterday morning in the early hours in Grimsby Town Centre. We're just going to show you some video footage now. Did you see yourself on that CCTV?
They was looking at them. Yes.
And what did you see yourself doing on that CCTV?
I'm a bit personal.
Explain to me step by step what you have done. Okay, let's just pause.
So l-am lăsat Mihail cu 2 în bar. Pe urmă am ieșit afară, am mai ieșit și câțiva englezi. Nu eram decât 4-3, eu și încă 3. Și au început și alța afară și un pământură, căzut la pământ, dintele rupt.
With my broken tooth and some grazing on my hands and my knees.
Pe urmă au plecat englezii care ne certam afară. Unul dintre ei a sunat băieții de acasă pe care i-a adus ulterior cu mașina. Cine era? Eu, Mihail și Valentin. Mihail ne instigase.
It was myself, Mihail, and Valentin.
Mihail ne instigase să luăm arme din mașină, adică Mihail. Să luăm armele. Valentin mi-a dat o trangă. După ce am ajuns la ei, am lovit o persoană, două persoane, cred. N-am vrut să-i sperii, n-am mai vrut să-i sau ceva, nu am avut intenția să dau.
I wanted to scare him.
You don't say you don't have the intention of injuring or hurting, but you hit him with a metal bar.
Conștient că inițial am vrut să-l sperii și am lovit cu pranga, am scăpat.
What changed? Why did you go from scaring to actually hitting?
Nu știu, m-am așteptat fost să fugă și de acolo atât.
So, as I'm looking at the CCTV here, I'm already counting 4 swings with this metal pole towards one of the victims. But you're saying you've only hit him twice.
Două știu că l-am lovit.
I know that I hit you only twice.
L-am lovit cu picioare.
I think the other people kicked him and punched him.
Would you say this is revenge from the earlier issue where you've been punched?
Nu, am vrut să-i sperii, n-am vrut să mă răzbun, n-am vrut să-i dormesc, n-am vrut să-i...
Even if you wanted to go scare them, why did you pick up a weapon?
N-am vrut să iau nimic în mână, dar...
Yes, I didn't want to take anything on my hands, but it was offered to me.
This is the injuries that this gentleman has suffered. This young man's not well enough to give a statement to us just yet. You know, saying
I didn't hit this one.
Okay. So, you've said you've gone there to scare him, but the CCTV shows that you hit one of them as soon as you've come around the corner. So, how are you meant to scare someone if your actions are straight in, let's go and assault someone? I don't have any more questions. Did you want anything? Okay.
It's a result for detectives. The confession of their suspect number 1. And there's also more good news.
They're going to hand themselves in at a police station. Are they going to do that regardless, or only if we speak to them?
The 2 remaining suspects are going to hand themselves in. They are both arrested on arrival at Birchin Way Police Station.
We've managed to identify all of the suspects. We need to put this case to CPS and hopefully secure the charges, because it's really important that we get these people taken off our streets.
So we'll get a decision on whether some charges to occur.
was a horrible, violent attack on an elderly male. He was lying there, bleeding. He'd been stabbed.
The nature of the stabbing is brutal. The perpetrator appears to be somebody who really wanted to kill.
Last thing that people would ever think would happen. All of a sudden, people in fearful of their lives.
Our role is to recover the evidence. We're collectors of evidence. But sometimes the evidence just isn't there to prove who's attacked and murdered this gentleman.
This was a real critical incident. I think it's fair to say we're all worried because it was escalating, the threat was increasing. We felt under a lot of pressure to catch this person.
There's a lot of work going on in the background trying to find that evidence before it's too late, because the offender might strike again.
The call came in late in the evening about a man who'd been attacked in the street. This was clearly a very, very violent attack. The priority at a crime scene such as this, first of all, who is the person? So that's important for us to try and identify who they are. But then it's about gathering the best evidence, and we just want to catch the person before anything else happened.
Residents identify the man as 82-year-old Mohammed Salim. Paramedics find he has lost a lot of blood and waste no time blue lighting him to hospital as CSIs enter the scene.
I've been to a number of scenes like this where literally you attend the site where an incident's happened and there's nothing there, bar blood.
Detectives turn to the CSIs to understand what happened to Mohammed and what could have driven the attacker to use such violence.
Distribution of blood at a crime scene can be really important because it helps to build a story and build a pattern as to what exactly has happened. There was a small blood trail leading to potentially where he'd first been attacked and then collapsed.
The blood spatter indicates Mohammed was ambushed. Police go door to door while CSIs search through the cordon.
When you have an outdoor scene, there's lots of considerations to think about. Firstly, it's the weather. Secondly, it's trying to preserve that outdoor scene. Thirdly, it's going to be how difficult it is to search for evidence in the dark. It's late at night, but in the morning, you've got members of the public, they'll all be wanting to go to work, and there'll be a lot of traffic on the road. So time is of the essence on a scene like this.
Before Mohammed reaches hospital, he is pronounced dead from his injuries. Detectives inform his family.
I saw firsthand Mr. Salim's family and the grief they had. So we're all human, and we all have relatives. He was husband, dad, granddad. Heartbreaking. I can't imagine what it was like.
It wasn't just a loss to the family. We lost a very vital part of the community. Uncle Salim was a lovely man, big family, a lot of grandchildren. He had a very good sense of humor. He was one of the elders that you would always see whenever you came into the mosque. He would be from the first people to come in, prayed on a chair with a walking stick. He was one of the last people to leave. So he became like a pillar of this mosque. It really had an impact, I must say.
He was well respected and loved, well thought of. That had the biggest impact on me. And so this really does stick out in my mind. But as detectives, we have to keep focused. So we started a murder investigation.
He had 3 stab wounds, which appeared really deep, and it caused really catastrophic injuries, which tends to suggest that this was quite a quick, frenzied attack, and there was very little contact between the two. It's really important to try and work out where the victim has been stabbed, how many times he's been stabbed, what he's been stabbed with.
When the incident happens very quickly, the murderer won't leave much trace. There will always be some kind of trace, but it might be that minute, it's very difficult to find.
The most important thing is obviously to try and find the weapon. So not only can you tie it to the victim from blood, but you can also potentially tie it back to the offender.
As CSIs focus their search, officers need to trace Mohammed's last movements.
He went to prayers every day. He was on his way home from evening prayer at the time he was attacked.
We normally have a very large congregation coming in for the prayer. And when he then left the mosque, there were still people around. And so they were the first ones to actually hear the commotion and then come up to him and try to help him as much as possible. But he's only lived a couple of minutes away. He's done this journey of going back and forth from his house to the mosque at least 10 times in a day. For something like that then to happen in a matter of seconds, really shocking.
Mohammed was less than 300 meters from home. Detectives speculate why someone would attack such a vulnerable man.
At the time, there was no obvious motive. He still had his wallet with him, so it didn't look like it was a robbery.
This attack makes no sense to anyone. Here we have an elderly man who's walking home using a stick, and they've been attacked with force, brutal force. There's just no explanation.
One of the things we do in an investigation like this, we look at, have there been any similar crimes in the local area? We look at, have there been knife crime, etc. Again, there was nothing there, so there's nothing that would give us a motive for this tragic crime.
With no forensic traces found at the crime scene, detectives need a breakthrough.
Police investigations rely heavily on forensic evidence, and sometimes that evidence just isn't there. At a scene like this, where it's been such a violent attack, that must have been a very difficult conversation. The crime scene manager has to effectively say, we haven't got much evidence. We've got blood and not much else.
This was clearly a very violent attack on Mr. Salim. Obviously, with his age, very vulnerable man. It's really important to identify the person who's done this, because if they've done this to Mr. Salim, could they do this to somebody else? We'll be looking for witnesses, so we'll be doing what's called house to house. Anyone seen the actual incident or heard something, we'll also be looking for CCTV. Looking around with the cameras there, with the cameras covering the way to and from that scene. It's really important for us to find out who's done it and arrest them as quickly as we can.
"82-year-old grandfather Mohammed Salim has been stabbed and murdered while walking home. With no forensic traces at the scene, the major crime unit looked to the post-mortem for any intelligence on the murder weapon.
Looking at the victim's 3 stab wounds would give you a potential indication of what kind of weapon might have been used. And it was indicated that it was a large hunting knife that had been used to kill Mr. Salim. He had no defence injuries on his arms or any injuries on the front of his body, which immediately infers that he wasn't facing his attacker. He was either running away or walking away from somebody, and he's been attacked from behind.
This tells me that there is somebody here who targeted this elderly gentleman and for some reason had a real hatred towards him. They are driven purely by an emotion that we need to understand. The police need to explore all possible leads and all possible motivations for the attack.
As searches for the weapon continue, detectives request CCTV footage from over 60 cameras.
The whole idea of examining CCTV is not just to try and find the offence itself, but also to backtrack and forward track what's happened before the offence and after. We need to try and find the route that the offender's taken, not just into the scene, but also away from the scene.
The digital forensic team uncovers a potential lead.
As part of that CCTV trawl, we did find an image of a male running away, quite a few roads away from the scene. Were they running from the scene of a murder, or were they running from something else? We needed to trace that person. Had they seen something, or were they involved?
The footage is analysed frame by frame.
Officers tried to identify who that person is, but it wasn't a very good image. It just wasn't good enough to identify the person from it. But then looking for other CCTV to see if they could find them elsewhere in the area.
The grainy CCTV is released to the press. The effect ripples through the community.
Small Heath is a very close-knit, mainly a Muslim community. Lots of families all know each other. Lots of people worship at the mosque. So certainly it was a tremendous shock for people living in that road and that surrounding area.
It's a very nice area to live in. Beautiful vibe. I'd like to describe it as. I've been around this area for about 20 years now, so I'm quite fond of it. It's very multicultural. It's the last area where we've thought that we would feel unsafe. We have elderly and vulnerable people, just like Uncle Salim, leaving their house quite late at night for the prayer, or very early in the morning for the morning prayers. And so for something to happen here caused that level of fear and confusion.
There are growing concerns that Mohammed was deliberately targeted, and the community is under attack.
The Mr. Salim case, where we know that it's a Muslim with a visible identity, he's left his prayers, he's going home, and he's targeted. And therefore, most people believe that Mohammed Salim was not a spontaneous attack, it was a premeditated, planned attack. It's a hate crime, ultimately. The climate at the time was very kind of hostile and Islamophobic.
There was a rise in Islamophobic attacks. A lot of these sporadic attacks started to happen where ladies would have their headscarf ripped off, would be intimidated, would be verbally abused. It's a very difficult period where now you have to reassure even those who are vulnerable and try to make them comfortable and secure, safe.
There was a real sense of sadness, a real sense of fear. Visiting the mosque and other places, there was a sense of working together and unifying together and actually being careful about your safety.
The major crime unit tries to alleviate the community's fears, while CSIs continue to search for any trace of Mohammed's killer.
At a scene like this, where it's been such a violent attack, there's pressure to find the evidence, but sometimes the evidence just isn't there. And it's very difficult sometimes to convey that to investigations team and the SIO. We effectively can't produce the goods. We can't produce the evidence to prove or disprove who's attacked and murdered this gentleman. We're hoping that there's further evidence or further intelligence that comes to light, which might then reignite investigations into the crime.
We very much kept an open mind. It was still a horrendous crime. We just wanted to catch the person before anything else happened.
Then, a call comes in that changes the course of the investigation.
There was a bang that evening. It was close to the Aisha Mosque in Walsall, by some railings by the side of the mosque. People who lived close by saw child lunchbox was in lots of pieces, but there were elements of what we now know as a bomb. At that time, I think it's fair to say we were all worried. A decision was made that the counter-terrorism unit would investigate that.
150 people were moved from their homes and helped by the local authority as the bomb squad was called and the area cordoned off.
Fortunately, no one is harmed. The counter-terrorism unit arrive at the scene and CSIs enter the cordon.
An explosion is a completely different type of crime scene. It's really important to try and ascertain what caused the explosions. Getting any forensic evidence from this device is crucial to that investigation. It needs to be done methodically but quickly to try and ascertain who's put the device together. Finding the component parts of a device can help detectives do further research into where those parts come from, to then try and identify who's purchased these items. There are specialist forensic labs that deal with explosives. So the FEL lab, which is the Forensic Explosive Lab, that deals specifically with incendiary devices and bombs. So that lab is the lab that's used to investigate and to effectively put the device back together and work out what the component parts are of the device.
The remnants of the bomb are sent to the FEL for analysis.
An IED is an improvised explosive device, and simply it is an explosive device that is made by an individual or individuals, normally in a domestic premises or outside of a professional setting. The material that was used in this particular case is what we call a peroxide explosive. In terms of its explosive power, it has an explosive power of about 3/4 that of TNT. So it's quite a substantial charge.
But the bomber made a life-saving mistake.
The device in the incident here only partially went off. You didn't get a full involvement of all the charge that was in there. The person who's made the device hasn't been particularly good at making the chemicals that you need to cause the charge to detonate, essentially.
The person who set it hadn't got it quite right. Thankfully, the consequences could have been horrendous.
The community would be absolutely frightened. At this point, they would know that they're being targeted. There is somebody out there who have a clear hostility and prejudice towards them. The police need to contain the fear and the anxiety of the community whilst also being very focused on their investigation.
Forensics look for traces of the offender on the lunchbox that housed the bomb.
Normally, explosive devices don't cause fires. They normally just explode. Therefore, the potential for being able to find fingerprints and DNA on the component parts of the device is quite high. First thing to do on an exhibit like this would be to swab for DNA. Use a pointy swab, because the pointy swab gets into all the nooks and crannies in the grooves. I'm going to swab the zips. What you're trying to do is find out who may have handled this. The outside surface of this lunchbox is fabric, so it's very difficult to get any fingerprints from there. Potentially fingerprints some of the inside. The powder that I'm going to use is black magnetic. And then just slowly use the powders to see if you can develop any fingerprints. I'm just running the powder over the surface to see if there's any marks, but there's no fingerprints on the inside of this section here.
The perpetrator appears to have been careful to leave no trace. The digital forensic team scours all CCTV opportunities.
Our CCTV trawl has to start where the bomb was left. So we started to look at everyone who'd walked in to that scene within the hours before the bomb went off and walked out in that time. And eventually we did identify a male. He walked in with a bag and walked out without the bag. And the bag looked very much the size of our bomb. So that was our starting point. And our starting point then goes to what we call tracking. And when he left the scene, we look at which way did he go. I call it a foot chase by CCTV. Did he go down that road? We track every camera he went on the road. Every time a car goes past, the danger is, has he got in the car or not?
The digital team trawls through hours of CCTV in search of the bomber. In Small Heath, police speak to locals for any leads to Mohammed's killer. Then, another terrifying event hits the West Midlands. Exactly 3 weeks after the Walsall explosion, a second mosque is targeted.
When that bomb went off, the size of the explosion sent shrapnel quite a distance right across roads, broke windows, embedded itself in trees. Thankfully, nobody was injured. Had anyone been in the way of any of that shrapnel, they would have been severely injured, if not worse. It was happening on a Friday. It was during Ramadan. This was declared as a terrorist incident because it looked like a direct attack on a mosque.
This bomb was set to go off 10 minutes before Friday prayers were taking place. Now, Friday is an important day for the Islamic religion, and this bomb maker knew that there would be a large number of people gathering to pray at this time. So this person was intent on causing maximum impact, targeting the Islamic population.
Thankfully, because it was during Ramadan, the times of prayers had changed. Otherwise, it would have been full of people walking to and from the mosque. There would have been people in the streets outside. There would have been a number of casualties.
This event escalated it to a different level. Of course, Fridays for us is a special day. I always compare it to the Sunday for the Christians and the Saturday for the Jews. It's our special day. So we have a very large congregational prayer on Fridays. And for us not to feel safe on that day, it's a very sad thing, to be honest. Because for someone to do something to such a large gathering of people on their holy day, or on their special day, it takes a certain level of hate to then commit a crime like that.
The bomb attacks against the mosques had a similar flavor, but their violent tendencies have moved forward because they're not apprehended by the police. Maybe that gives them this world power, this kind of idea, empowerment, that I can go out and do something more kind of damaging. And this could be them planning and plotting these bombs so that he can maim and kill more Muslims.
Looking at the days, 2 bombs we known gone off on a Friday. So our concern was it another bomb going to go off the following Friday? So this was a real critical incident.
Following the bomber's MO, the counter-terrorism team fears the next bomb will be even more powerful and could be fatal.
We've got a bomber operating in this area. We need to find out who they are before it's too late.
The West Midlands Major Crime Unit are searching for the killer of grandfather and community figure, Mohammed Salim.
It was a shock because it was the last thing that people would ever think would happen. Who in his right mind would attack an 82-year-old vulnerable man walking with a walking stick? He was a very lovely person, very strong family orientated as well. So yeah, it had a very strong impact on the community.
Counter-terrorism have deployed a team of CSIs to the scene of a second bomb attack outside a mosque in the West Midlands.
When an explosion happens, there's a huge amount of destruction. There's a lot of debris that can be thrown from quite a huge area. It's paramount to try and recover the maximum evidence. So the cordons for the area have to be set a lot wider, and the search teams have to search a lot more in the surrounding areas, looking for parts of the device or anything that might have been damaged by that device. All the vital bits of shrapnel and evidence that's come out of that bomb is recovered, because it's really important to check if there's any unique markings on any of the nuts and bolts or screws within the device. Therefore, you might be able to find out where those were made and sold, because that might tell you who your offender is.
From the radius of destruction, it's clear that this is a much more powerful device than the Walsall bomb.
The second device, essentially you're dealing with at least 0.5 kilogram of equivalent TNT. By the very virtue of the fact that they're adding additional shrapnel to a device, that indicates that you have an intention to cause harm or loss of life. The people that do this sort of thing, where they're making explosives, almost similar to serial arsonists in terms of they tend to get better at what they do the more they do it. first or second device may or may not work so well. And then as you go through the process, they get better at making the chemicals, they get better at setting the device off. People like this can be driven to improve and get better because they're essentially practicing.
This is somebody who is intent on causing harm and fear. They are starting to build a bit more confidence at every stage, trying to make it bigger and more harmful. It is a real concern.
With the bombings just 3 weeks apart, the counter-terrorism team believe they have just 6 days left before the next attack. They must determine which of the 200 mosques in the West Midlands will be targeted next.
We recognised that there was a real threat to the Muslim community. We felt under a lot of pressure to catch this person. We were just really concerned another incident, someone else could lose their lives. Within West Midlands Police, we had officers working round the clock. The whole force was working 12-hour shifts because we had to protect our Muslim community from any more attacks.
The team's strongest lead is the grainy figure seen on CCTV at the Walsall crime scene. Searching through hundreds of hours of footage across the region, digital experts trace his movements.
When he left the scene, we tracked him all the way across Walsall into Walsall bus station and got a bus into Birmingham. He was very CCTV aware. He had a cap on. It makes it more difficult. See him get off a bus in Birmingham. He walks past the bull ring, quite distinctive there. And then, really coolly, he goes into a shop and buys a bottle of wine. So we're looking at the CCTV in the shop, trying to see a facial image. But he's really careful, had his head down all the time, as if he was really conscious of this. And then we tracked him out of the shop, and then he gets onto another bus. We then track that bus, and he gets off in Small Heath.
The bus stop is just meters away from where Mohammed Salim was murdered.
This is a real turning point for the investigation. Our working hypothesis was he lives somewhere in the Small Heath area. So what we then thought is, let's try and find him going out. He might not have been as careful. We tracked a lot of buses going out from Small Heath to Birmingham and then to Walsall earlier on that day, on the 21st of June. So by looking through those images, we eventually found that person and we found a full facial image of him. And this was a real breakthrough moment for us. We saw he was carrying a bag.
Police believe the bag is housing the Walsall bomb, putting everyone on the bus in danger.
The peroxide explosive HMTD has a very high shock sensitivity and a very high friction sensitivity as well. So you can initiate it with friction or shock quite easily. So it can easily be set off unintentionally if you're transporting it. So carrying it around in a bus, if you drop whatever it is you've got in your hand, is the potential with these sorts of explosives that they may detonate.
We know how easily that could have been detonated. So on a full capacity bus, the consequences would have been horrific. This suspect is taking all the risks that they need to cause maximum damage.
Detective Superintendent Sean Edwards wastes no time prioritising the bag as his next lead.
We saw the bag came from a local superstore. As detectives, we went to that supermarket and got CCTV for that day. And found him in the store on that day, coming out of the shop with the bag that we subsequently carried to Walsall. So now we had two clear facial images. It was really imperative to try and identify this person. We strongly believe that was our bomber.
With just 3 days to go before the next suspected bomb attack, the CCTV images are circulated around the West Midlands.
We put a lot of officers in the area with his photograph trying to find him. And then we circulated his photograph to the media asking who knows this person. Really surprisingly, we didn't get any calls at all. No one named him.
Detectives put all resources on the ground in Smallheath.
We targeted that area by old-fashioned detective work. We had so many officers on there working 12 hours a day because of this threat. There was 2 local neighbourhood officers who knew the community in Smallheath. We went into this industrial area and showed these images. Do you know this person? And one of the receptionists said, yeah, that's one of the forest students who is staying here.
Just one day before the next feared bomb attack, the suspect is named as Pavlo Lapshin.
He was from Ukraine. He'd been in the country a few weeks. He was living in a adapted warehouse as part of an exchange program, which is why he wasn't known and why we didn't get any calls about him. They called on the radio that he was there and they went to arrest him. He did struggle with them, but he was quickly restrained and arrested.
A search warrant is secured for his accommodation.
The home address of the suspect was a flat above the factory. So that crime scene then becomes a huge crime scene that needs a lot of attention.
You're entering a completely unknown area or unknown scene with materials or risks that, again, are unknown. Obviously, going into anything like that is going to be inherently dangerous because you simply don't know what you're dealing with when you walk in.
The factory had to be evacuated. The neighbouring houses would need to be evacuated. You're going to have to send police officers into that scene, but there's the risk of more devices. There's the risk to human life of the members of the public. Is the address booby-trapped? It needs a lot of specialists attending, and it needs to be a very controlled and methodical examination without risk to anybody's life.
As soon as the area is evacuated, specialist search teams enter his flat.
When we searched his home, it was quite chilling. We found several other bombs. The bombs he was making seemed to increase in power. There were a number ready to go with another component, so mobile phones, chemicals, and he started putting those together. Quite a sophisticated way. He obviously knew how to put bombs together. That told us he was planning a campaign, and what we feared, that he was planning a campaign, would have come true had he not been caught.
When a house search is conducted, not only do you have to recover the component parts of the device, but also he's been seen on CCTV wearing clothing. It's really important to search the property for that clothing because forensic tests need to be done on that clothing. Is there anything that will be able to confirm what we've got at the crime scene?
Clothing, matching those seen on CCTV, is fast-tracked to the lab.
I'm going to put the needle in the bag and suck out a portion of air. The initial investigation would be to examine if there's any contaminants, so if there's any chemical that can be detected on the air in the bag above the exhibit. And you're looking for any accelerants or volatile liquids that have seeped off the exhibit within the bag that might link back to the explosion. So then you place this into a knife tube. Secure it in an exhibit bag. These knife tubes have metal ends to prevent any movement of the exhibit and any damage. I'm now going to pop the bag open and get the item out. So I'm going to mini tape the inside, remove the surface of this tape. It reveals the sticky side to it. And then you would mini tape the area where, either around the waistband or inside of the pockets where you're most likely to get where is DNA. And you just pop the mini tape once done back into the pot.
CSIs recover all of Lapshin's personal devices.
We would look at any digital evidence, so mobile phones, computers, they would be seized and downloaded by digital forensics teams so that we can ascertain exactly what searches he's been doing. The digital forensics teams are incredible. They can recover a lot of evidence from a digital device, even if it looks like it's been deleted.
They prioritise his laptop.
By looking at that, we found quite a wealth of evidence against him. On there, he'd been searching himself. The mosques that he targeted, he'd done a Google search of those. He'd looked at how to get to and from them. So we could see that it had been meticulously planned.
Among Lapshin's files, investigators make a disturbing discovery.
Chillingly, he'd also searched details on the murder of Mohammed Salim. And in there we found a photograph of him holding a knife, which the pathologist said that is the type of knife that would have caused those injuries. So we believe this was a knife that killed Mohammed Salim. And this for us was quite a remarkable moment because we could see that clearly he would be the main suspect for both the murder and the bombings.
Police have arrested Pavlo Lapshin for 2 bomb attacks outside mosques in the West Midlands. And now evidence points to him also being the killer of 82-year-old Mohammed Salim.
It was on the 29th of April.
Я был в районе мечети.
I was around the mosque.
Его я не знал.
I did not know that person.
Убийство было совершено по мотивам расовой ненависти.
A murder was committed on the basis of racial hatred.
Нанес 3 удара ножом.
I used a knife. I stabbed him 3 times.
When we interviewed Pavlo Lapshin through an interpreter, he admitted what he'd done, but he's very proud of what he'd done. And when we asked why he'd done it, he said, because he's not white and I am white, I wanted to increase racial conflict. So a real chilling motive for the murder of Mohammed Salim. We were all monitoring the interview. He said to us, yeah, I set all 3 bombs off. And that was news to us because we only knew the 2. When we asked him about the other one, he told us it was one in Wolverhampton. He gave us details of it. He set on a roundabout by the mosque in Wolverhampton. That hadn't been reported to the police previously. We sent officers to the scene, looked at the roundabout and found fragments of a small explosion that had gone off there.
The discovery of fragments of a device on this roundabout opposite the mosque showed there'd been an explosion there several weeks ago. The 3rd time a Muslim place of prayer had been targeted in the last month.
Those 2 crimes, in terms of MO, as it were, might be different, but the motivation behind them is exactly the same, it's just pure racism.
Lapshin actually says that he wants a race war. This was all about biological superiority, this idea that people of color were inferior to people who were white. He wanted to be part of this idea of him being a soldier fighting for this greater cause against the Muslim invaders. As a soldier, Lapshin can justify his actions because he legitimizes the victims.
On the 22nd of July, Pavlo Lapshin is charged with the terrorist-related murder of Mohammed Salim.
Having the knife would have been the icing on the cake. However, he'd already admitted it. He told us things that he didn't, that only the murderer would know. We have pictures of him holding a knife, which the pathologist said that is the type of knife that would have caused those injuries. So we were very confident the evidence we had.
Even though the offender's admitted the crime, at any stage, he might turn up in court and then say, oh, not guilty. And therefore, we have to have prepared a case to be able to still prove beyond reasonable doubt that this is our offender and this is what he's done.
We didn't know whether he would want to have his day in court to espouse his ideology. So that was our concern, and we planned for a trial. We wanted to clearly show this was a racist, a terrorist intent on causing fear amongst the Muslim community and actually murdered Mr. Salim. So I sent staff out to Ukraine to liaise with the Ukrainian authorities just to understand more about Pavlo Lapshin. What we found was a young man who'd been at university, had done very well at university, so much so he'd got on an exchange programme to come to the UK. We know when we're speaking to local police that he'd been trying setting off bombs in the Ukraine just to test and experiment. He'd been dealt with for what they termed as a health and safety incident, where we'd actually blown his kitchen up in his house. He obviously knew how to put bombs together. When we looked at his laptop, there were photos of quite large explosions that we found out were in Ukraine. These were bombs he'd set off. But in the UK, he wasn't successful. I think part of the issue was his English wasn't brilliant, so translating the chemicals he had in Ukraine to the chemicals in the UK may have accounted for them not going off quite right, but he was obviously honing his skills, honing his English, his chemistry knowledge.
Detectives work with Ukrainian authorities to establish if Lapshin was part of any terrorist groups.
It's also really important to see if there's any other offenders. Has he been working alone, or are there other people within his network? And if so, they need to be identified and arrested.
Police are finding a lot of literature around online radicalization. They find lots of white supremacist memorabilia. He's searching white supremacist websites. He uses that as an inspiration. He's radicalizing himself. And this is why people call him a lone wolf.
We were very confident nobody else was involved. We were very confident he was what we call self-initiated terrorist. He wasn't directed by anybody else. But I think he thought he maybe was cleverer than us. He took great steps. He was very forensically aware. He never took a mobile phone with him because he knew we'd use that. Equally, with both the murder and the bombings, he washed everything in high-strength vodka because he thought that'd get rid of most of the forensic traces. He did think he got away with it, as it were, and was planning on carrying on.
Lapshin's search history reveals that before moving to the UK, he was researching where he could buy explosive chemicals. Just 2 days after moving to Smallheath, he brought a large hunting knife, which matches the fatal injuries inflicted on Mohammed Salim.
The police can see search histories related to 2 years ago what he's planning. So when he comes to the UK, he finds a victim, unfortunately in this case Mohammed Salim, and then he's motivated to commit that act of violence. So although it only takes him days to commit this act of terrorism, in fact he's been planning this over a very long time before.
Even though in both of these crime scenes there wasn't much physical traditional forensic evidence, fingerprints, DNA, footprints, tire marks, there's always digital evidence.
At trial, Lapshin pleads guilty to the 3 bombings and to the racially motivated murder of Mohammed Salim. He is sentenced to life, with a minimum of 40 years.
The evidence we had was overwhelming, but he showed no remorse for this. An elderly man who was well respected and loved, taken away for a horrible racist motive.
The tragic death of Mr. Salim had a huge impact. The murder teaches us lots of different lessons, and part of those is trying to come together as a community, as one. We need to unite when it comes to incidents like this. Terrorism tries to create a psychological fear, and we need to show that as a community, as a group, we're not afraid, and that you don't have to be Muslim to be impacted by Islamophobia. It's a hate crime, ultimately, and a hate crime has no place in any society.
At the end of a case like that, from a policing perspective, it is a satisfaction to see a dangerous terrorist go to prison for the rest of his life and keep people safe. That's why we joined the police service. But part of that you take away with you, the family, and I can't imagine the grief and loss that Mr. Salim's family went through.
Uncle Salim always had that very contagious smile. He'd always be open to speak to people and give advice. He's a very lovely man, very respectable man, and very respected as well.